Signals present
He's dead.
a MOTS Halloween series
Zombie redneck torture family.
celebrating
He's still breathing.
horror
They're entirely separate species.
with in-depth analysis,
Well, we're not talking about reality here. We're talking about fiction. It's different, you know?
adult content,
So, what side of the rainbow are we working tonight?
adult language,
Soon all of us will have special names.
and spoilers.
The devils are really angels.
Join us.
I think I'm going crazy. Here they come.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for tonight's episode of MOTS-O-Ween 2016. Have a seat as we stare blankly at the white noise, and it stares into us. Maybe we exercise our demons, perhaps even yours, while we discuss 1982's Poltergeist. I am your host, Luis Duran. Here with me are my fellow mediums. From my left, Ian Manzer.
How you doing?
Richard Perry.
Good evening.
Scott Thurlow.
We're here.
And I guess we'll just jump right into it.
Sure. Well, I'm going to give the funny log line real quick. Poltergeist, the original, I came up with, since it's starring Craig T. Nelson, Coach with Ghosts. And that kind of, I think, encapsulates a lot about it. But go ahead, E.
Well, kind of building off of your comment, the introduction, yeah, I can go into all these little details about what happened, and if anyone wants to bring up specific points. But basically, it is a kind of mildly sitcom-ish, well, maybe not straight sitcom style humor, with a little touch of absurdity, developing all the main characters. And eventually, the house they're in this nice little suburban area gets haunted by ghosts. And the very famous scene of the little girl at the television screen, the staticky screen, her hand on they're here, and the house is then infested by a poltergeist, or the titular poltergeist.
Entity, if you will, or entities. Sure, no, I agree with that. And I think, like you said, like even the movie itself basically is like, here is Act 1. We're done. So yeah, I mean, it was fine. You're right. Like, it's funny because I said to you guys while we're watching it that I'm finding this movie, at least the build up, like the random, like suburban, like just going about the daily doings, and here's a day in the life of this family. Like, but the jokes and the gags I thought were funnier. That they were funnier than I thought they would be. And I don't remember Poltergeist very well. It's been years since I saw it, and this was Louis' pick for this year. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll give it a watch again and see what I think of it. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of charming in a sense, and then it just switches to like now ghost movie.
It was more charming than it deserved
to be. I kind of agree with that.
I think they were going for that, though. Yeah. That's especially what Spielberg usually kind of. It was a story by him, I think, screenplay a little bit.
He produced it, I believe. And
and he produced it as well.
Yep.
But it was sort of like not as extreme as Edward Scissorhands is, but still with a commentary about suburban life.
Sure, a caricature.
Perhaps a little bit of Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It had again, it had a very sitcom-y tone, and I can't really escape that. But it worked, and it really helped quickly build a kind of likability to these characters. For not that this was a traditional horror movie in a sense, but you actually or at least a few of the characters you developed kind of an attachment to.
Yeah, sure. No, I agree with all that. I think it was pretty solid.
So, as an example, I guess, of some of the sitcom moments, you had the dog running through the house while everyone's sleeping, eating food in every single room,
making a mess.
He tricks one of the kids to roll over while he takes the potato chips that were in their bed and eats the potato chips on the floor. That kind of thing. You have the Craig T. Nelson,
Coach,
Coach
and
his wife,
Steve, in the movie,
getting high in bed while their kids are asleep. There's all this kind of weird, goofy humor to it, but also one of your characters you liked, Scott, was the one of the construction workers building their pool.
Dirtbag Teamster guy.
Who just went in through the window and started eating food. But I don't know, it felt very dated, but charming in that way now.
I think that's well said, and I pretty much agree with it. I can't say much else about it in general.
Yeah, for me, the charm right away, it's what struck me. But I think that's exactly what they wanted to do, kind of build on that, and then easily just take it apart,
Fair enough.
Especially with one of the things that I do remember is the kids playing pranks on the one guy carrying a case of beer home.
Yeah, what an I said what an asshole bunch of kids. That's why I hate kids.
But I mean that's what
I get
the suburbs are all about. I mean, they're all you could do the same thing, I guess, in a city, but not on this level though. Not to create that kind of charm and just people are bored out there, really.
Sure, no, I get you.
Actually, that leads to a scene which is perhaps the prime example of this kind of sitcom humor, where they're watching a football game, but it turns out that coaches, it makes me laugh every time. Coaches a remote and his neighbor's remote
affect each other's TVs. Yes.
So they're in a battle between football and Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and they're kind of just like pointing the remote at each other's houses and like staring each other down. But that's what you'd expect out of a CBS sitcom, and not necessarily one of the most respected horror movies of the 80s.
Sure, no. Again, I agree with all that, and yeah, it was funny and amusing and charming. I'll definitely give the intro a 1.
I'll give it an unexpectedly strong 1.
1 for sure for me.
Give it a 1.
Okay, so on to our body. This was yours, Rich. What do you think?
Yeah, so basically we start off with the poltergeist started to make his presence known by moving small things like chairs, magnets, stuff like that. And you have Coach come home from work and Diane pulls him into the house and starts showing him what she's found out. So they start to, was it the end of the night when...
Well, I want to point out first that, so she starts noticing that stuff, and then when he comes home, she has him put a chair down where she's marked like where it moves to.
Yeah.
And then they put their kid down.
Yeah. and like she hands her a helmet as if she's done this.
Yeah.
Like they just like made a game about it.
As if it's implied she was doing it all day. So yeah, it was amusing, but she's showing her husband proof that something odd, strange is going on, haunted, if you will, in the house.
I want to just jump in for a second that I'm very impressed by both the skepticism but ready acceptance of this family when faced with this. Because in like a lesser horror movie, you'd have one of the characters stubbornly refuse to believe anything is going wrong here. Yeah. It felt very believable.
But they were presented with pretty much like material proof, if you will, for lack of a better term, objectionable proof that strange, unexplainable things were happening in front of their very eyes.
No, but just the fact that they kind of partake in it too. I mean, not just with Carol Ann, but Diane. The wife even said how it feels because she had done it. She wanted her husband to experience it as well, and he's of course he's the one that says no. I don't know. I don't need to do that.
It probably would have been a whole different movie if he had like hopped in that circle. But I love how he just like continues to avoid it after that point.
Yeah, he's like, nope, we're not. Nobody go to the kitchen. Not going to the kitchen.
So they try to tell their neighbors they think they're crazy or high, probably both. And then the closet opens. No, then a tornado hits.
Yes, spectral tornado, I suppose.
Spectral tornado / lightning storm, where shit just gets real. You have a tree animate and grab Robbie out of the window and try to eat him. Well, the family goes out to save him. Carol Ann gets sucked into her closet, where they just lose track of her. Coach goes to find parapsychologists to study the house, try to help him figure out what happened to his daughter. They come by talking about how much they've seen and recorded. Like the one guy says he recorded a Hot Wheels race car
move 7 feet in 7 hours or whatever. Something like that.
And then they're immediately confronted with Carol Ann's, or the bedlam in Carol Ann's room. So they record for the night, and one of the, after things start escalating, the one guy, Matt, just leaves never to return. They go...
Well, if I may, the reason he leaves is that he gets a vision of his fucking face melting off.
Peeling off his face
to
see his skull underneath.
But really, who hasn't had that experience? Though, granted, it was off of drugs.
You know what?
Well, maybe, but...
bad
I would say the house is punishing him for eating up the family's food.
I'm glad you brought that up, yes. I was going to if you weren't. Yeah, so prior to that, he decides... Again, it's sort of a weirdly... Not weirdly, but thrown in their comedic part, where he says to his partner, they're doing the recordings, they have all his equipment set up, he's like, I'm going to go get something to eat, implying he's going to go out. But no, he means he's going to go raid this family's pantry and fridge.
He's eating ribs.
Yeah, pulls out, I think they were pork chops, whatever.
Yeah,
he pulls out a bunch
about
of
to make a steak.
Just a steak that was just chilling in the fridge.
Yeah, and then the food gets all weird, and it becomes infested with maggots, and that freaks him out. So he goes to clear his head in the bathroom. Of course, then he sees his face peeling off to a skeleton face in a vision, and decides, fuck this place, I ain't working here no more.
Well, I mean, I would be able to handle one. I'd be able to probably handle that, but also to get bit.
Oh, he got bit.
Spectral bites.
I forgot about that.
I mean, that happens shortly right after, right? Yeah, because he goes back to the cameras where
You're right about that. Good point. So I'm just saying all that happens to him and then he's gone.
Yeah, he just went and got a regular job. Fuck this fake science stuff. I'm just gonna
back to looking at Hot Wheels going across the room.
Yeah, much safer.
So the medium shows up, gets a read on the house, and tells them exactly what's going down. Like, Carol Ann's trapped in the place between life and death. The spirits are attracted to her because she's alive. And don't go towards the light.
I just also want to clarify for those who haven't seen this movie that the medium is incredibly tiny and ambiguously ethnic woman.
Yes.
And she makes everyone sit down so that she can talk to them.
Eye level, yes.
Yes. Either eye level or as if she's teaching a class.
Yeah, it's a nice little touch, and sure. So then she does the ritual, right? And I would say, so they have this, again, not quite elaborate, but a plan involving marked tennis balls and rope and some other shit, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, it's implied like she's done this before, but then she admits she hasn't.
Well, she admits that she hasn't walked onto the other side before.
True. Subtle difference. I guess you're right about that. So yeah, they do this elaborate plan, and Diane has a rope tied to her. She jumps into the doorway between dimensions, if you will. Emerges, falling out of the sky in their like master living room downstairs with
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann, and then also as part of the preparations, the medium has instructed them to fill the bathtub with water. So they're dunked in the bathtub. They seem unconscious and/or possibly dead when they fall out of the sky. They do that. They awaken, and the medium proclaims the house clear.
Clean.
This house is clean. Yes,
and the body has
Sorry,
ended.
my friends.
And it also looks like somehow the mother and her creepy little blonde daughter that she's rescuing from the other side happened to have fallen through several pools of like Jello.
Plasma, ectoplasm, if you will.
It was like embryonic fluid
Yes,
almost.
it looked like Jello. Yes, as a prop wise, sure. But anyway, I think we agree that's where the body ends. And so, what do you think about it, like overall?
Yeah, the solid. Like I think they did a good job of balancing the humor and the growing unease with the cast, and like
I agree
how
with that.
things started escalating with the Poltergeist. I loved the medium. Like, I love when Coach, when she asks him a question from upstairs, and he's just like, he gets quiet and like squints his eyes as if he's concentrating.
He's testing her.
And it's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm answering her. She was a psychic. She could have picked up on my telepathic thoughts. She's like, I heard you. I just don't like trick answers.
No, that's pretty good. You're right. It's pretty nice touch, and I think agree. It's solid overall. There was nothing that bored me about it. I wasn't like, this was a slightly under 2-hour movie. I think it was paced pretty well. I think Ian's might talk a little later about things he thought could have been condensed, perhaps. But overall, I didn't think it dragged on or anything. It kept it moving along, and as Rich said, yeah, it ramped up like some of the images and what was happening in the house. It was sort of like not harmless, but more playful. It seemed earlier, and this time now it's just like hardcore shit is happening.
So there is something, as you just prefaced my point for that. The medium, I feel, is a lot like the older exorcist in The Exorcist.
Sure.
Where upon like looking back at the film, you feel that they have a much bigger role in the story than they actually do, because they had just such a presence on both ends. And this medium, like, yeah, I everything was paced very well, at least especially with the horror element. The ramping up of the Poltergeist as a threat. Although, to be fair, the second thing the Poltergeist did was animate a tree and attack one of the children. So it doesn't...
He must be a Tolkien fan.
Yeah.
But they were coming like, the attacks, that is, were coming like more often and seemed more intense anyways. Yeah. But sure.
But it made sense for like the context of what they were doing in this universe. But again, I felt that it could have been condensed a little bit. The first psycho kind of therapists,
paranormal
investigators, and the medium could have been combined into one group and maybe shaved off about 20 minutes of those two plot lines. And I think that would have made the work even tighter. And it was already a very well-paced and tight film, but not perfectly.
I quite agree. Like, it would have been more streamlined, I guess. Like, they could have rolled it all into one rather than like sort of breaking up one group and then she comes in. But it's still fine overall.
I also wouldn't have said, I wonder how, in this use, he goes to a local college, I think it is, and or some kind of academic institution, and finds these paranormal investigators, they bring in the medium. But I wouldn't have gone, like, if they had just brought the medium in, I wouldn't have gone, wait, they should have gotten paranormal investigators first to then bring in the medium. Like,
you've been cool with that, yeah. I get it.
True. I think everybody would have immediately, like, expected the medium to be the first one to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I mean, I see what you're saying, but I think it was still fine overall. I think I'm going to give it a solid 1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, for me, I'd have to say that it did. You could shave a few minutes off, but I was totally fine with the pacing. One detail in particular that I really did enjoy is when the first investigators came in, they were the most skeptical ones out of the whole movie.
Sure.
And as soon as they were sitting at the dinner table and the first one that voiced their opinion, like things started moving around the room. The poltergeist wanted their presence to be known. And anybody that denied it, they made sure that you knew for a fact.
Yeah.
You know what I kind of found weird? That even after they saw everything floating around in Carol Ann's room, Matt, he was still the most skeptic. Where, like, they heard her voice come through the TV after that, and he's like, I'm going to check if there's a receiver.
Yeah.
And that's when he gets bit.
But they've kind of established the fact that these aren't professional, in a sense, paranormal investigators.
That's
this is like people who are in the academic world, psychologists.
That have this as a hobby.
I think the lady mentions that. She's like, there's no degree in this. We're just kind of we're winging it. But we've had kind of experience enough that we know what this might be leading to. She kind of gives a run. They all give him a rundown.
She gives like an exposition speech, but it was fine for what it was. So.
Yeah,
she gets a hell of a resume after this.
Yeah. And thinking back, I think to go off what Ewan was saying, that just some of the I think Perry too, like the escalation of the hauntings or the actions that the poltergeist takes is it jumps back between innocent and dangerous.
Yeah,
because there's two different. Well, there's a group of spirits that are relatively at peace because, as we'll find out later on, they're over a graveyard. But then there's also a bad presence,
a vengeful part of them.
A vengeful presence that also rears its ugly head. Mm-hmm. So I liked how they balance it back and forth. So as soon as everything was a little calm, if you felt okay, I mean, you hear things out of the TV, chairs move, that's nothing bad, but and all of a sudden you're getting tossed up at a wall.
Sure.
Something's trying to hold you down. Yeah, that's
trees are coming alive, tornadoes appearing.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. That's a pretty good point about the balancing, like of one side of it versus the other. And you're right, they did explain that a bit later on, shortly thereafter. So I guess at the end of the day, like I said, I'll give it a solid 1. I agree with E that it, again, could have been shaved off here and there, but it wasn't to the degree that I totally thought it was like padded out or bloated or anything.
Well, the body has one of the most famous scenes, which is, in a way, the exorcism scene where they're bringing the daughter back. I'm going to give it a medium 1. I don't think I've ever given a medium 1 out yet.
Are you doing a pun, sir? God damn you. Stop it. But I pretty much agree with that.
1 for me.
1's
all around. All right, so on to conclusion. Scott, lay it on me.
All right, so as we just said, sort of not quite a false conclusion, but they do their big exorcism ritual, if you will. Medium proclaims it, this house is clean. And so lulls them back into a sense of security and peace. And yes, for like a day or so, maybe like 1 day, not even. It was, first of all, let me be clear: the time frame was odd for this movie. Like,
yes, it was.
It wasn't really apparent like how much time had passed between.
It made it almost seemed like it was only 2 days, and then the medium mentioned that their daughter's been in there for weeks.
Yeah, like I said, but like it's because of the cuts and the edits they do. Like it's clear. Like Steve is like disheveled. He has like big bags under his eyes. Like hasn't been sleeping or eating well. And his boss comes to see him. But he's like, "Oh, you still got the flu?" Like that could have been like a week. It was something I ticked out. But regardless, so the lulled into a sense of sort of like, okay, everything's turning normal. We've cleansed our house and so forth. But no, the 2 kids, Robbie and goddamn, can't remember her name, Carol Ann. Whatever, creepy blonde daughter. They're in their beds, and of course the closet starts opening again. The light comes back. I think that's also one of the famous things, like the actual like big ghost spider head thing comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, oh shit, still here.
An appropriate response,
essentially. And then Diane runs up. She's relaxing, taking a bath, and just
dyeing the gray out of her hair.
Yeah, dying. So the trauma of going into the between world the first time, sort of shocked her hair a bit gray, and she wants to get back to dyeing it. So anyway, she's doing that.
That has no point at all in this entire movie.
No, it's to keep a sense of security. I'll say, like, at the barest of surface value for it. Anyways, so it comes back. She runs in. They form a human chain, grabbing each other's hands, and she pulls them out of the room. And then they basically move out. Like, they realize it still hasn't. Like, oh yeah, that's when the corpses start coming out of the grave or out from under the ground.
Yeah, she falls into the pool too. Yeah, and then she gets helped out. Or into the pit.
So right at the end of the body, missed this part, but Steve's boss comes to him, tells him, "Oh, you've earned enough for us. You're a good partner. You're a good salesman. We're going to give you this new house. Then we're going to build a house on the hill, and we bought the land. And behind him is a huge graveyard. He's like, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. We'll move them. It's fine. He's like, we did it anyway before with the current place, the current suburbs that you're living in. He's like, and like, of course, that's a huge puzzle piece. That's why this is all happening. So then you get that piece of information dropped. That of course explains why coffins and corpses start just coming out of the earth when at the final, like, showdown, if you will. So that all happens, and then they decide they make a frantic escape in the car. Dana shows up to wherever she's been for like the last 20 minutes of the movie, and they drive away and stay at a Holiday Inn. And as Louis pointed out, very, very disarmingly soothing music plays like at the end. Like, yeah, sure, I guess they're safe there, but it's just like too cheery. But I still thought it was fine. It was a good action scene, if you will. They sort of pull out all the stops. Like this is the most active and perhaps dangerous the Poltergeist has ever been. So clearly they cannot stay in the house anymore, and they will not.
Well, from what I gather, when the medium is helping get the little girl out of the world, she ends up guiding all of the other spirits that the malevolent demon was oppressing, or whatever.
Whatever's happening
into the light.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, it's now just the malevolent demon in this house, and it's kind of PO'd. Wants to start messing.
Sure, I suppose. And I guess real quickly, they also did mention that the daughter was a beacon of light to them, so that's why they called her and she to them and so forth. So yeah, sure, whatever explanation you want to have about that, whatever.
There's a creepy clown.
Yeah, and that's there too. But no, like I said, I think actually that probably actually was the tightest part of the movie, tightest section, and it was all very well done. Like you said, some of the more famous stuff is in there, and I think it wraps up narratively quite well. I don't have any really complaints about it. Again, I'll probably give it a solid 1.
I just want to see what the newspaper headline looked like the next day.
Oh yeah, well, so the house itself folds up into the other dimension, whatever, after they drive away. So, which it was kind of a cool looking.
While there was a fire hydrant that was shooting flames too.
Yeah, that's true. The whole neighborhood is now fucked, and everyone's coming out to watch it, and
then they're all getting corpses blasted through their house.
One might think, but
Tuesday nights.
Sure. At least if they don't want to argue about changing each other's channel anymore, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, but Coach's boss is ruined now.
Yeah, well, he brought it on himself. He
might also be dead.
Yeah, that's true.
That's funny. But yeah, I'm good. Solid 1. I got nothing else to add to a conclusion. If you guys got anything?
No, I don't. It's
no, me neither. I don't have much. You kind of been spot on with it. I'd give it a 1.
It's the most horror, has the most horrific moments. Because this film isn't, I wouldn't necessarily classify it as a horror movie necessarily. But if there was a point to, an argument to make that this is a horror film, the conclusion definitely is.
Sure.
So, yeah, I have to give it a 1 for that.
Okay, so I will be throwing out some themes at you guys.
Mm-hmm.
The first one that kind of I recognize right away, at least for me, and I'll make an argument for it. You guys saw it much more recently than I did. I saw it a few days ago. But the first thing that you hear is the national anthem.
Yes, that is true.
And it cuts to, back in the good old days when there wasn't 24-hour TV programming. So yes, the channel did have to go to static at some point. But that's how they wrapped it up. And it's just, it's a reoccurring theme for me that it's manifest destiny is the best that I can think of. Because not only is it,
I quite like
and
that.
There's many instances, examples rather of, it's not, your house is built over an Indian burial ground or a native burial ground or whatever, what have you. It doesn't necessarily need to be Native Americans or anything like that, but it just pretty much
sacred
is
ground
everybody
of some sort.
At that time, I would say, especially, if you're moving out from the city, suburbia, you're plotting new land. You're creating houses where there was nothing or there was graves. nothing is sacred, so to speak, as I'm pretty sure Coach says at one point. He's like, isn't that sacrilegious or something?
Yeah, he did say that, too.
But it's just that everything's more, what matters to me is more important than what is around me. So it's very consumerist. I mean, we are hit over the head with all these references to pop culture.
Yeah. Ad placement. A number of ad placements for sure.
But it's funny because it was very interesting to me that, it kind of moved in that direction, and the beginning of that was especially very prevalent. That brought it right to my mind.
I just want to make one quick comment on that. I think it's prescient to the Dakota oil pipeline that they're trying to build, with the idea that they're actually building it on Indian burial ground. So I think the Poltergeist was had foreseen this and was warning us back then, and also showing us Ronald Reagan's face for when Coach was reading that.
That's true.
Anyway.
No, that's true. Yeah. I forgot about the book. Yeah, that he was reading. That was
it's just Reagan, the man, the president. Of course,
also,
obviously,
it's part of those times. Like there's there was like inflation going on and everything like that. But if you're in the suburbs, that's like very American dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're out of the rustle bustle. It's like that's where people found peace. That's like the ideal that I mean, we all grew up in the suburbs. Like it's very different than what we see in the city. And for me, that pretty much took the lead on that. Another thing to say, I guess with this too, like with that, especially the suburbs, you're out with your family. You want to have a nice life in the suburbs. It should be very peaceful, great place to raise a family. And this family gets torn apart right at they're sending
sure.
kids away to stay at their aunt, or the grandmother's.
They send their son, their young son, with the dog in a cab, and they're like,
well, the dog chose to go.
Yeah, that's true.
Either way, though, and he's like, they just drives away. Sure, they're trying to keep him safe. I just thought again it was like maybe unintentional humor, but you're right. Like it's causing their family to be broken up.
Probably more humorous because of how quickly they sent away Robbie and Dana in between each other. She's just like, I'm going to go stay with friends.
Yeah.
And then like 2 scenes later, he's hopping in a taxi.
Like I said, like the timeline is all kind of fucked. But it's actually like, I was going to say to you, Louis, that's like Waldo-esque, man. But I don't dislike it. Like the theme of Manifest Destiny as represented by that. Like, it's pretty good. I don't think I ever would have thought of that or put it together. I, of course, was going to say, don't build your fucking house on a graveyard of any sorts. Like, that's sort of like more humorous. But I like now that you brought it up. I think you can get that up, and of course, consumerism and all that, like the America in the early '80s. Like the vision of that lifestyle as being like what you should strive for. Like that's what people want to be living, and it's not all it's cracked up to be.
I'm going to actually challenge you slightly on the family aspect, because I think that this actually shows a very strong family here, and a very actually.
I think you said strong family, but the location.
The divisions between them.
Okay, go on.
It was actually, considering this is a horror movie, it was all very smart parenting decisions that they made. Mm-hmm. Like, if they had kept the family together, you would have been putting your children in danger that they didn't necessarily need to be. Mm-hmm. They got rid of people when the danger became too much for them, and emotionally they could handle it. The idea of actually the bond between Coach and his wife. Like, and showing how each of them has a role of parenting. Like the idea, even the medium asks Coach, which one of you punish? Like here, we need you to take on these roles of being a parent. And like, there's so many, like how they play off each other and how they find strength from each other. That's like, I think one of the best parts of this movie.
Mm. Oh yeah, I totally agree. I would say, from what I was trying to get at, is that, due to especially what Coach has done as the real estate agent, mm-hmm. it's a consequence that his family is split. It's because that's what's very near and dear to him. They've been there for a long time, but for some reason, now it's time. These spirits are starting to act up, and they're starting to build. They're planning on building another plot. I mean, they're planning to build another, pretty much, string of houses over another graveyard, which is, I think they even mentioned that. Oh yeah, his manager mentioned to him that estate you're living on now, not just your house, but other houses are living on a graveyard. But only his family is being haunted. I think at one point, the couple, Diane and Steve, go to the house and they're just, they're stoned, but they're like, have you been noticing anything strange? And their neighbors are just like, no, what are you talking about? These guys are stoned. But yeah, so I'd say it's mainly just a consequence of tearing apart their family. But obviously, they're great parents. They stuck around. They wanted weeks having their kid gone.
No, I think you're right, and both of you, I sort of condense them both. That it's somewhat refreshing nowadays. Just it's a weird like reverse nostalgia because I remember seeing the Poltergeist for sure, just not in such a long time, so it was kind of blurred to me. But yeah, like they all make smart decisions, both in terms of their family and in terms of fighting the horror. Really,
I also like how they never really give up hope.
Yeah,
like like a thought never crosses their mind that their daughter is like gone for good.
Yeah, and that's probably like another top theme I think that they cover, like an important one. So yeah, I'll probably give it a 1, even though I think you convinced me with the Manifest Destiny thing. Like it's like academic as shit, but again, I like it as applied to this film.
Do you have any more themes?
Yeah, there was another one that I was going to bring up. I mean, religion is one, and I would say in the sense that actually probably by definition, just that there's a after and maybe before life. Like there's another realm that's out there, but they did it in a way where it's not like The Exorcist. A priest is not coming to save the day.
It's
not
a
saying
medium. Which one per se.
And she even says, like, I'm going to ask you to do things. You better listen to me, even if it goes against your Christianity. And true. It's just there wasn't a save like a Holy Trinity saving the family. It's like, no, it was their actions and just working with what they get, like what the medium was giving them. And it's they mentioned heaven a little bit. But they didn't say, like, as I said, they're just in another spectrum that they don't quite understand yet. So it's not like, no, Christianity's gonna, that's the winner of this story. Like, always convert. Sure. Christianity's always gonna be the winner.
I believe the medium specifically references it as a higher consciousness, and not
a different plane of consciousness or whatever. Yeah, true. No, I agree with that. You're right. It's well integrated. And anyone else have any themes that they think are humorous or not? All right, here we go.
I'm putting on my Sigmund Freud.
All right. Really rolling up the sleeves.
Do it, Food.
Because there was a lot of vagina references. And specifically, though, I said
I don't say a lot,
there.
But certainly some obvious
there's
ones.
a lot of like rebirth and birth,
yes.
and the motherly role in here. When they come out of the when she's going in to save her daughter, or the mother, and they drop through the spectral hole in the roof attached to a rope, covered in like the red obvious implications, and they go into like the bath and they're washed off, and like even like their child who has long blonde hair looks like she's almost bald with the way she was designed. And I think as we were watching the movie, Rich, you made point of the second time they go in the conclusion when the portal reopens, you're like, wow, that looks like a vagina.
Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with it. And that's why I think that the main protagonist of this, which we'll get to in a little bit, is the mother. And that the idea of like, I don't want to read any more deeply into this as possible because that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down.
Both of those are innuendos, by the way. I've already read it too much into it.
But nonetheless, I feel that it's there, and I feel that someone has written a paper on this at some point. So
maybe
go find that.
But I mean, that's funny. Like, yeah, you're not to saying you're only doing that because of our recent earlier episode about The Uncanny by Uncle Siggy. But I mean, like, yes, now that you pointed out, like, they're kind of obvious that it's there. Yeah. So sure, you can throw that into themes as well. And do you think it was handled well? Like, do you appreciate it that it was there, or do you think it was like
the thing is, I'm not necessarily clear as to what the point of it was, but I guess I don't also want to overanalyze it.
It's just an adventure.
But I like a lot of what the themes that Louis brought up. So.
Yeah, I think Louis convinced me more, but I mean that's a fine one too, and I'll give them all probably a strong 1.
I agree.
1's all around.
Yeah, I'd give it 1. All right, so after themes, it's on to antagonists with Ian.
Ronald Reagan. But no. The Poltergeist. And in a way, if you want to go into like kind of the spiritual, supernatural sense, you have the inability to let go of like your life as a spirit, and the malevolent and those spirits that become malevolent and become jealous of both the living and the other spirits moving on.
The peaceful departed, if you will.
Yes.
Sure.
So I guess that would be, although I think what's more interesting is, in a sense, the manifestations of it, where you're looking at like the animated tree, the creepy clown, all of these like the way that the malevolent spirit would prey upon the living. And I think it was very clever. And I actually really like what the medium said about it is, like, clear your minds, because it is going to find every fear that you have. It already has, and it's done, like, it has done enough damage as, or it can do enough damage with that, or whatever the quote is. I like that part of it.
You don't want to give it any more ammunition or something like that. Sure. That's what the Ghostbusters thing. Clear your mind, don't think of anything. But I, of course, am going to say the enemy here is 80s corporate greed, because none of this would be happening if the corporate executive guy didn't decide to cut corners and just move the tombstones and not move the actual bodies of the graveyard. So I don't know. Like, that's my humorous one. But yeah, like, the actual antagonist of the protagonist is going to be the Poltergeist. And yeah, I think it was pretty effective in the various ways it manifested itself, and as we said, sort of ramped up towards the end. And like you said, the medium speech explaining why this was even happening. So I think it was effective.
I should give a direct rebuttal to that. Not that I think it's a bad choice for an antagonist, but in the traditional sense where they're intending the corporate suit to be an antagonist, there's usually actually a punishment. They embody it in one character, but he like kind of realizes his flaws, but he doesn't suffer from the consequences of what he has done.
No, you're right.
At least not in the story we've seen. Like, perhaps later on as ramifications of what happened, but he's not what's necessarily antagonizing.
Sure, no, like I said, it's more of
Coach and his wife.
It's more of a jokey answer, but I'm just saying, like, if you wanted to like assign blame, he's the cause, and then the Poltergeist emerges as the actual antagonist. Of course, I agree with that, and I thought it was pretty effective and well done as the force that's against them in the film.
Yeah, I mean, Poltergeist is the title.
Has to be in the film, I suppose. Obviously,
it suits it as antagonist. We did mention the manager. I'm curious if he does live in those in Quest of Verde. I bet he doesn't. No, and I bet he wouldn't live in the next one either.
Exactly. He lives in his own separate Beverly Hills style area versus that.
They kind of make it seem like he's made a habit of seeking out cemeteries to buy out.
This is how he's built his empire, right? That's what I'm saying. Regardless of whether or not that's true, like, again, he's there and he sort of embodies that, but he's not the actual antagonist, of course. So, on the actual end of it being the Poltergeist, I think it's pretty effective. Again, probably one of the stronger points of Poltergeist, the movie.
Yeah, we kind of already brought up all of the uses of whether you're always questioning whether it's a friendly, whatever apparition or manifestation will be, not as if it's ever friendly, but whether it'll be kind of benign or whether it'll be very hostile.
Yes.
And again, it's very, like, they actually do a decent tension in this movie. It's not great tension, but it's
solid enough.
It's solid, yeah. So I'm going to give it a soft 1 for this.
I'm giving it a solid 1. Stronger than perhaps some of the others.
Give it a 1.
Give it a 1, yeah. All right, Rich, we're on to protagonist.
All right, so I think we're all in agreement that the protagonist of the film it should be shared, I guess, amongst Steve and Diane.
I say 60% her, 40% him.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, it's them. Do you remember the last name? What's the last name of their family?
Freeling.
Okay, there you go.
Freeling.
The Freelings.
Yeah. That's weird. But yeah, like, as far as handling themselves in a horror movie, like we spoke about, they've made proper decisions that any level-headed person would be prone to make. And they just roll with the punches, especially with his antagonist, especially not even knowing its motives until the medium gets there and still giving an ambiguous motive for it to be doing these things.
It's the best motive she can guess at, right? It might be something like that.
It might
as
be.
He said, yeah.
He's just bitter at being dead.
Yeah. Bitter, envious of the living, or jealous of the living and the light and of your daughter's life force or whatever again. But sure, like, I agree, of course. Like, I think they were pretty effective throughout, and like we all said, they made rather sound decisions given the situation, given the framework of this being, a haunting, if you will.
Which is like one of the things that I look for in a protagonist, especially in a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like, if you can make smart decisions and still have the story screw you over, your victory is only going to be even sweeter in the end.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think they are pretty good. And yet, yes, even though I keep referring to him as Coach, Craig T. Nelson did a good job. And I'm sorry I don't have the actress' name in front of me, but whoever played Diane was quite good as well. And they were believable.
I think she was my favorite of the two.
Yes.
Yeah.
absolutely.
I definitely like.
Yeah.
I was rooting for her more than him, if you will. Like I liked seeing her when she had to battle it.
Like I noticed that as time went on, he became like such a physically he looked like a broken mess.
Even his boss shows up. He goes, "You look like shit." He's like, "Yeah, I know."
And like it's like you see him looking like a mess. You see the kids just like completely frightened and almost suffering from PTSD from the storm that hit. And then she's all done up, makeup on,
well rested,
8
hours.
Yeah,
having Sharon snips of the flask with the paranormal doctor lady as well,
doing a little bit of day drinking and still like taking it all in stride.
Yeah, exactly. They're right. I think they're very effective and, like I said, strong characters, as Rich has said, in a horror movie, and I got to give them credit on that front.
I'm going to make a comment I usually do with. I usually give that the antagonist of a horror movie is the most important aspect of it, but I think this movie would have failed if it didn't have these two
chemistry
actors and the chemistry between them portraying it, because they really sold this family to me, and not only the script decisions, but like the little ways they like. This movie's great on little details. I'll go into in style, but like the details between their marriage, it felt like they were a real family.
Yes,
which is something I rarely see in a movie. So,
especially the dynamic with their oldest daughter too. Like she wasn't the bratty, rebellious teenager that you so often see in 80s movies.
Yeah, she was pretty solid too. Although she did flip off the scumbaggy construction guys who were catcalling her, so I think deservedly so. Like you said, Ian, like little details like that I thought were fun. Like, and the two younger kids like throwing food at each other, just being annoying kids.
But not only that, like here's the little she flipped off the catcallers, but the mother watched her do that and turned around and gave a little smirk to herself.
Good job, baby.
Yeah, so there's
good job, honey.
Like the Tobe Hooper's the director, did a great job promoting his actors into being like acting like real people. Which no,
I agree.
Yeah, they had great personality, and I love the fact that all of them in their own way kind of persevered over the poltergeist in their own instances. I mean, especially Robbie. That I forgot about it until we were watching the little tail end of it. That he takes out the clown. He really conquers his fear. And the closet shuts for a little bit of time, but then when it emerges, it becomes the vagina that we all stared into.
That's what we all must stat into at eventually.
But it's very strange because now that we're talking about that, like I'm thinking now that I guess it is past themes, but just briefly I'll touch on it. That all the females are very connected and they don't really have much happen to them. That where there's anything at stake. Like they are not harmed in the way like we see Craig T. Nelson looking disheveled. And he hasn't changed his clothes in days. He hasn't slept. Yes, he hasn't slept. Obviously the medium, but the mom, the daughter, like, all of them, like none of them are getting choked out by a clown or getting bit by the dog, or like eating infested food, things like that.
Except the mother has her Nightmare on Elm Street moment of being thrown up on the ceiling and dragged around.
Sure.
So,
but no, I mean, anyway, she was strong, and her daughter around her, both of them actually were strong in their own senses as well. And I agree with all that. So
yeah, they were all very practical, and I'd say
I'll give them a damn solid 1.
Yeah, I give it 1.
Yep.
Okay, Scott, we're on to secondary characters.
Alrighty. Well, in our grand tradition, I've got one. I don't know if you guys will agree it counts, but I love the dog in this movie. Like he was a well-trained dog. Wherever they found him from, contracted him out from, he performed amazingly well. And he was kind of an asshole dog also at like a couple of points.
Clever dog.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, of course, and
he was smart enough to get out of the house.
Yeah, he was absent for most of it because he got into the cab with Robbie when they sent him away for safety reasons. So, and if I had to choose a human character, I would say actually aren't that many, right? Like there's the manager, the medium, the paranormal investigators, and maybe the neighbors.
Maybe the neighbors. Yeah, I'd say maybe.
So from amongst those, I think actually like the guy who couldn't handle a week in the house, or however long they were in the house, like the rotten meat guy, face melting man. I'll call him. I don't remember his character's name.
His character's name's Matt.
Okay, face melting Matt. Like he was kind of like bumbling and like, but he was like the perfect character for the story, for the setting, and played perfectly. He wasn't in very long, but
I think the reason
he was
that
kind of a dick too, but not quite. But I don't know if he got what he deserved. But
I feel like the reason he got picked on so much by the Poltergeist because he was the most skeptic out of the three parapsychologists.
That's possible too. You're right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It's a nice little angle. So I think you did a good job, and I think you guys have one that you like, so I'll leave it to you. But for me, either the dog, whatever his name was, and Matt, I'll combine to give me a 1 for secondary.
I also think that the black guy really didn't care. He's kind of like listening to music and doodling. So like the Poltergeist was trying to get his attention, but it's just ignoring him. So
true. Yeah, Matt had to actually come out, tap him on the shoulder.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, the Poltergeist even turned the camera facing the stairs so I could show them what.
It's funny.
Oh, he would be my favorite secondary character simply because he's just so
Sort of
laid back.
blasé about it.
Blasé about the whole thing. Like even more so than when Coach and his wife started dealing with the paranormal activity in the first place.
Yeah, I think he took it. He was very surprised at a lot of things. Like he actually took it with a scientific perspective,
and almost like with a hint of childlike wonder.
Yeah, I mean,
like when he's sniffing, when he's like testing the tennis balls. And
yeah, and he's drawing the picture of like after the I guess Carol Ann running through her mom, and just that, he's with the pad and he's just drawing, and it's pretty sick. Like.
I have to give props to the medium because
I know you're going to pick. That's why I was saving
definitely
for you. Yes,
but I also I've talked about her enough. I want to talk about actually my favorite character in this film. It's the guy on the bike with all the beer at the opening, who gets tripped up by a bunch of kids with like
RC cars.
RC cars. He falls over and drops the beer, and the beer starts spraying everywhere. He just runs into Coach's house with his beer spraying.
They're watching the game. They need to save
nobody's
the beer.
paying attention to this beer spraying everywhere.
Yeah.
All of a sitting around a TV, man. That's like what you want in the suburbs.
As I recall, so that sets up the TV switching argument. Yeah. But his buddies are watching the game, and one guy goes, "I bet my life on this game." Like it's one of the background things, like when they're all like talking amongst themselves. So I mean,
one guy on the phone.
Yeah, he's obviously calling his bookie. Like that's what I said that even before they said anything about gambling. So yeah, it was a funny scene, and sure, so you like that guy. Of course, he didn't have a name, but yeah, that was part of like the funny, charming, like sitcom aspect of it. But sure,
I think this is the point where I'm going to say this. This is such a strange movie to compare it to another movie. Like I can think of, but no comparison I can make will fully
do justice.
Like this huge Venn diagram of other movies. In a way, perhaps it's like Stranger Things is an amalgamation of all these different horror movies that had come before it. This is an amalgamation of other similar movies. Like again, so you have your great horror supporting cast, and you have your great comedic relief supporting cast. But like. So,
I see what you mean.
So
sure.
difficult to really try to define this movie and the characters in it. So
sure. Well, I'm giving secondary 1 regardless.
Yeah, I'd agree. Definitely 1.
Definitely a 1.
1 here as well.
Okay, so I will do dialogue. This might be, I don't know. It's a little weak for me, but I think because it didn't need to be as strong as the other elements that we've already talked about. There are obviously the iconic lines, this house is clean. They're here being the biggest one.
Sure. Everyone remembers that. That's like a cultural osmosis.
Yeah, and but everybody kind of speaks exactly how everybody interacts, day to day in our normal lives. Just like his manager come in and he's like, "You look like shit." Like, no, there's no, don't want to just cut right to like you just look like shit. Besides that, I mean, dialogue it was fine. I couldn't say anybody said anything that was a little eye rolling or stereotypical cliched. Even now, that movie's from '82, and I think at least there'd be 1 or 2 cliches that but I don't know. I can't really say that much that stands out for me. But it wasn't poor, but for me it was just, I'd say maybe slightly above average for me.
See, that's the thing I was debating. Like, I wasn't sure what to give this one. Maybe one of you guys can convince me, but I'm sort of pretty much in where you're at, Louis. Like, yeah, nothing was cringeworthy or eye-rolling at all. It was all sort of very day-to-day believable, but also nothing really stands out. And even the famous ones, like, are almost like, not grating, but you've heard them so many times that they're not as effective as perhaps as they would have been originally in the movie. So I don't know, like, you guys, Rich or Ian, convince me, make an argument.
So, Scott, you've used this term before to describe that, which is like workmanlike.
Sure, it was that.
Yeah,
Yes,
very much so. It had this believability to it, except that occasionally it would do exposition dumps,
like twice. I see what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I don't think it was egregious.
I feel like the at least the one with the medium was very organic, because she was giving them not only a synopsis of what she read off of the house, but also try to give them some type of
like plan or guidance or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, and I see what you mean, and I agree with that. Like, yes, okay, I think the one that was like less well handled was the first parapsychologist sort of exposition dump.
Yeah, when they
Craig
group
D.
together.
Nelson also gives one at one point. I believe.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Coach
Oh.
gives one at one point. But here's my issue with it. I laughed a lot during this movie, but often at visual gags and not necessarily at dialogue. Yeah, there were a couple of funny lines here and there. You brought one up earlier with the guy like, "I bet my life," and it was generally supporting characters with it. So the movie has a very realistic viewpoint of dialogue with a very unrealistic viewpoint of visuals and the world it's building. So it's like they're playing it straight in dialogue with not elsewise, which is kind of
I get what you
off-putting to me.
mean.
You have the occasional exposition. You have, and this comes to me, the little girl, and considering she's a very focal point of it, kind of grated on me. With her, like the
and you do know I hate children, so
the
playing
sound,
that card, yes.
I'm being honest with it. It was like every time, that
Yeah,
kind of
I know.
it bothered me. So I can't fully give this a 1, but I'm not giving it a I hated it 0. It's gonna be a very soft 0.
All right, what do you think, Rich? I'm still not convinced quite yet. I just don't know what to give it.
What was the review that we were doing where we were talking about the dialogue was so realistic that it didn't really stick out?
Recently? I'm not sure. But I remember doing, we say that sometimes. So would you say, all of you, was it forgettable? Like the thing is, that's sort of like a bad connotation, I know. But I don't know if I remember anything particularly. But I don't know if
Aside
that's a
from the
bad
pop
thing.
culture narrative, dialogue, they're here. You can't.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Actually, I think I'm pretty sure, besides the pop culture lines and the info dumps, those are the only things I actively remember about the movie.
it's so daily believable. Like, there's people speaking day to day are not like zinging off one-liners usually. So because it's so like built in reality,
day to day aren't. It's like they're not like I want to make a comparison here with Edward Scissorhands. Yeah, that was a far more extreme example of it. But like the dialogue very much fit in with the absurd world that they were building for that.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, they built a slightly less absurd version of the Edward Scissorhands suburbs, but kept realistic suburban dialogue. And to me, it clashes. And I don't know if that was the point or not, but it stylistically clashes for me. So that's just the point.
All right. I don't know. I think I may have to lean to, like, again, let me be clear, nothing wrong with it, perfectly fine, but sort of like because it was too believable, because it was too, like, again, sort of mundane, if you will, just people going about their daily lives, and even when like the supernatural things were introduced, again, I'll give it a soft, like I said, not hateful, not like it sucked or anything, just not enough to get there. 0.
Yeah, I'm okay with the 0. Like I said, it was just slightly above average, but not
gonna say
enough
it is
for
what
a
it
1.
is?
Yeah, it is what it is.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give it a 0 as well.
So on to style with Ian.
Ooh, my least favorite topic. So I'm going to say one thing and then pass it along if people want to talk about other things with style. I want to talk about the humor, because where I mentioned earlier in the humor failed me in the dialogue. The humor really won me over with almost the buffoonery and shenanigans that were completely running throughout this entire thing. And they also had Chekhov's clown, which worked very well. They had this creepy clown, which I think obviously a part you remember in the thing, and you're just looking at this clown, you're like, something is a horror movie with this clown doll, and just sitting there. And it's not doing anything for a majority of this movie. You're just waiting for this clown to do it. And then, and so is the kid too.
He knows.
We all are. Yeah.
And then it happens, and it worked really well for me. But again, like I think the style is really aside from the character development, the style is the strongest point to this work. I think they do it has a unique sense. Again, as I mentioned, it's a lesser kind of Edward Scissorhands subgroup.
Yes, I see what you're saying. I mean, I largely agree with that. Yeah, I think it was shot. The cinematography, I think, was pretty excellent. Like, was it like Scorsese? No, but clearly, I would say kind of Spielbergian, even though he didn't direct it, but he was involved in it. I'm sure he was on set here and there, maybe given who directed Toby Hooper, like tips here and there, like, hey, do it this way. And even I think Louis was saying precast a bit that some of the effects, yes, of course, look a bit dated, but I still think they're pretty well done, pretty well integrated. And even I actually think the clown was better, like the CGI, the spectral phantasm floating down, like we're still okay. Of course, you know it's not up to today's standards, but that's kind of an unfair comparison.
I actually have a question.
Okay.
So when the scientists first go into the room
and see the things floating around, I thought that was pretty well done.
Really?
Yeah. I still think it was okay. I think other things looked worse.
I think the house being collapsing in on itself was the best.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really cool too.
Yeah.
Was that intended originally to be 3D?
I don't think
because that's what it looked
maybe
like
I wouldn't know
on the screen. It looked like bad 3D. But again, I don't judge a work for having special effects that aren't up to current dates. You can't do that. So I think it was fine for what it was.
No, I agree.
The practical effects were very good.
Yeah, like I said, some of that, like the chair thing, like the kid sliding across the floor where she marks out, like all that is still pretty fine. And yeah, like you said, it's unfair to judge it against the standards of today. I still think though it stands up pretty damn well overall.
Yeah, I mean everything that was practical, it had a good effect for me, and it, things moving around on table, like the chairs, the piano,
the Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Ghostly Carol Ann's voice, sure.
But yeah, stylistically though, like the lighting, I think was also a really good good thing that I noticed. There's very hard angle effects on it, like very focused lighting. And for me, I mean, granted, it is an '82 horror movie as well. That it definitely had a much bigger impact back then than it did on me now.
But still.
Yeah, regardless, it's
still solid.
It was. Right? I would agree. Yeah, it was very good. And cinematography-wise, like one of my favorite shots was when the manager and Steve are walking on what they're thinking about building the new estate on
the hill.
On the hill, and you're behind the picket fence, which I say again, like that's like the American dream. You want to have everybody wants to have that white picket fence. It is the
symbol of that. Sure.
But what's behind it? It's the graveyard, and there's like that great shot of one of the headstones right there, like staring Craig T. Nelson right in the face.
Yeah.
And he's like, but until someone something about complaining. He's like, the manager told him nobody's complaining until now.
Sure, and sort of you can see like dawning realize, like once he mentions like, oh, we've done it before in the valley below, what you happen to be living in, and like you sort of can see his like haggard face get even more haggard.
Yeah.
So I think you guys are right, and if Steve were here, he'd probably bring up the soundtrack. But I think it's kind of here and there. It opening with the national anthem was pretty cool. Like that was a nice touch. And that's sort of like
remember the soundtrack at all.
I was saying like they sort of your standard like rising like swelling orchestral things when things were getting intense, and then the sort of ending cheery send you on your happy trails song. So it was all fine. It was sort of like more in the background, I guess, versus most, but I had no problem with it. I'm just in the spirit of that, if you will, I'll just mention that. But yeah, everything else you guys just said, I agree with. It looked damn solid overall, both effects and also just the shots that were included. So I'm going to give it a 1.
Okay, and I think the tone, the way they used humor and the tone, the visual gags, and all that to set the pace of this work, I have to give credit to. And also all the special effects to use to set the tone of the Poltergeist. It deserves a 1 for that.
Yeah. Oh, before we move on, I'd say just the little details as well. Like it's just like the mise en scène was just on point where everybody kind of had their own little personality, or they had interactions with people. The kids playing pranks on the guy with carrying the case, and then he walks in, and then they're watching the game. Guy's betting his life on it, and then they get the neighbors. It just repeated. Like it did. It was sitcomish, but it was charming, and also like just the little things. The flask, just like things that you really didn't need to be there at all.
Sure, but it was improved for having those things. I definitely agree.
I want to bring up an example of that. So the bird dies at the beginning of the film.
I forgot to mention
Forgot
this.
about the bird,
Goddamn it.
yeah.
And
Good call.
the mother is going to flush it, but the daughter discovers it, discovers her trying to dispose of the body.
Walks in on the flushing, if you will, the attempted flushing.
Very foreshadowing, yeah.
Yes.
So she has to bury it in a cigar box, and like the daughter's making. She's young, 7, 8 years old,
Probably 7 or so, yeah.
and like making go through all these preparations for the funeral. So they're burying it in the cigar box, and the dog's there staring at it hungrily. Which it has done for a lot of other food in here. And then you walk away and you just see the dog.
The
starting
second
to
they
dig
turn
up-
away, he starts
dig up
taking it
for
up. And that's why he's my favorite character. I forgot to mention that in that.
And then
but
they
you're right.
cut to a later scene where they're bulldozing this thing for the pool, and you see the cigar box.
Tumbled out of the dirt. Yeah, you're right about
Yeah,
that.
the foreshadowing, it was very strong.
And you're right. All of those details, I think, like
and foreshadowing horror through humor.
Yeah.
That's a very clever method.
I agree with all that. You got anything else to
So
say
I'd
about
say,
that?
I'd say
Anyone?
for me, 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the stronger ones of this film, and I'll give it a strong 1.
1.
Okay, and next up is Rich with recommendation.
I would definitely recommend this film. I mean, as a kid, this was one of the ones that scared me the most. And well, it still doesn't have the same that same feel for me. I can appreciate a lot more of the themes now, and especially appreciate the acting from each of the actors.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like horror movies with a good mix of comedy, you have that, especially if they have like a Spielberg feel to it, like sense of wonder and adventure, despite everything happening around you. I think you very much enjoy this movie.
No, I agree. So, like you said, that I remember seeing this movie as a kid, and yes, it was sort of left an impression on me. But then over the years, I sort of like forgot about it a lot. Like other horror movies sort of overtook it. So when Louis recommended it for this year, I was like, I'll definitely see it again. I remember, of course, like the big parts, the standout parts, but I don't remember like a lot of little details and stuff. And I think it does stand up. I think it still holds up. I think it's a damn solid horror movie to this day. And yeah, I would say recommend it. Like, it's a good Halloween movie still right now.
Yeah, I think maybe I'd seen this a handful of times, and it's funny how much I didn't quite remember, and how the way they balanced, the jump scares was actually like truly terrifying things and things that you did see coming, and then subtle ones. One of the first things that freaked me out that I remember that I forgot in the most recent watch was the chair scene. Like the first time it was present, like in the kitchen, and not the chair moving, but like just
when she turns back.
When she turns around, that just freaked me out. I don't know what it was, but that really freaked me out. And the last time was most recently when I had my headphones and I was watching this movie, and she Diane opens the door, talking to Carolyn, trying to get into the bedroom, and it just, the spirits just scream at her.
Yeah,
and that sent chills down my spine.
Jump scare.
So
sure.
Yeah, it holds up really good, and I'm surprised that we're seeing so many ones, but I would totally recommend this as a horror movie because it's good.
It's damn well done. It's competently
it's
put
totally
together.
Good. And see it twice.
I haven't seen this in a very long time either, and I wish they made movies like this still.
Well, they certainly tried, just not pulled off as well.
No, because
recently.
this isn't really I can't say this is a horror movie, because if you're looking for like a scary horror movie, this has its moments, but it's not. In a way, perhaps it's more like Gremlins. In a sense, it's a fun movie to watch, and I enjoyed every moment of this. There's some parts that could have been trimmed overall, but like stylistically, like humor, like this movie has almost everything. And the fact, Richard, the point you're making of a recommendation is that I think that as a kid you identify with the terrified children, but as you grow into an adult, you actually start identifying with the adults in this. And I feel that there are jokes in a way for both.
Yes,
the younger audiences and the older audiences. I probably would not have recognized watching this as a kid, like the whole marijuana jokes going on throughout this.
Right, yeah.
But I think it works on so many levels for such a wide audience. I don't know who I wouldn't recommend this to.
Exactly. Even if you're not a huge horror fan, like you said, it's not quite. Yes, of course, it has horror elements, and I'm doing quotes here. But yeah, it's just a solid movie to watch throughout, and it has also greatly done comedic parts. So yeah, you're right. I echo you. I don't know who I would not recommend it to.
Yeah. So I'm definitely giving it a 1.
And I'll say it's still good.
Yeah, I'd definitely give it a 1.
A 1 for me as well.
All right, so I'll give the scores. This is a very, very difficult one because we all give it 9s, giving it overall 9.
Nice.
Which, I'm I think it's worthy of a 9.
I think that's
overall.
exactly the score deserves. And yeah, it's goddamn solid. It still stands up, still holds up, like we said. Check it out.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. Come haunt us another time. I'm Luis Duran here with
Jonathan Ian Manzer, who, if you try to come and haunt us, I'll get a medium.
And Rich Perry, don't go into the light.
And I, of course, been Scott Thurlow, and I'm going to get myself a dog just like in this movie. Good night. Happy Halloween.
Music by Chris Morgan. Editing and engineering by Stephen Hermosi.